Peter, welcome to Scotland.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Pieter van Schie. Maybe it's a bit too hard. You can also call me Peter. I'm doing a lot of work in employability, entrepreneurship, social inclusion, social innovation, and do some social media savvy stuff. I have a company in Scotland, Werkcenter Scotland. So says a bit what I'm doing. Work stuff, and mostly with young people, but also with people with how we call that, a longer distance to the labour market. Yeah.
And as you know, Scottish Drugs Forum has been interested in employability for some time, and we've got the Addiction Worker Training Project and some interest in that. In terms of drug policy, we have the Road to Recovery, which is very much focused on people's substance use. So people come through, as you know, their drug problem in their own way, through treatment or whatever, and achieve a state of recovery, which they define for themselves, but recovery. But that's actually just the beginning of another stage in their life, Can you talk a little about that and reflect on that focus on achieving abstinence or recovery or whatever?
Yeah, I really love the fact that I think that in Scotland that it's really high praise that people are in recovery and they get there. They're really proud and that is really good. But I always say it's a little bit the same as, recovered but unemployed. Just like you are, on the university, you graduate, but you're also unemployed. So it's like you achieved a lot, but actually you're at the start of your life, because everybody thinks that work is an integral part of life. So that is probably the heavy part, because people already have achieved a lot, and that is true. But for all other people around, it's just starting. Yeah. So I think this is a big thing to overcome, to bridge. Yeah.
So at that stage, people very much have that can have that kind of recovery identity, and as you say, but there's still that deficit, if you like, of not working or not having something to do during the day or whatever a job represents. And you also stereotypically, but generally have people who maybe don't have a lot of work experience in terms of paid work. They maybe don't have a lot of qualifications or education, and so they're very much at the beginning of that journey, and yet they're not the same as somebody who's just left school or 17 years old because of a whole load of life experience and so on. Yeah. So you have a strange combination for an employer. It's a challenge to deal with somebody who in a way is very mature because they've had to reflect on their own behaviour and so on. But at the same time is at the beginning of a career or a work experience. What are the issues there?
Well, let's focus on the good points here. I think that the good point is that we have somebody who has experienced a lot in life. So I do think that life skills are important, and they have gone through a lot of stuff, right? So I think these are skills, and what you need in as regards to the future of work is problem-solving skills. So usually, I mean, maybe it's a bit odd to say, but they have a lot of skills to achieve stuff. They have done that maybe in the past in a bad way, but these skills can also be processed and transformed into getting a job and doing that stuff what you need to do on that job. And I think that this is a big advantage. I also think that if we get across to the employers that they are eager, I mean, if they're in full recovery, they want to show the world that they can contribute to society and that they can reach full potential. So I think that is a plus. The bad side is probably that you have been branded a bit, probably negatively. So we need to work on that. That's not lying. I mean, we should avoid that and should be clear about your past. But I think you should try to use and build a new professional digital identity on maybe a bit on Facebook if you're using it, or on LinkedIn or on Twitter. And from there also doing some voluntary work maybe to bridge the gap from being unemployed to getting to work. So I always say from work to work, that's the way it works.
Yeah. And in terms of like programs that support people, either specifically people who are in recovery or people who are, you know, further from the labour market, as you say, you know, what are the key components of a good program? What should be provided in a good program, or what should people in recovery be looking for?
I think I've been going to a lot of study visits, and I've seen a lot of European projects, but also a lot of employability projects in the UK and Scotland. And the most successful projects, employability projects, have always 3 core elements in them. And that is, a few of them are probably an open door. The first one is work experience. You need to get work experience to get into work. And this is something that everybody says, well, yeah. But you see a lot of programs they are training people, but they're not actually doing the work bit. So that is odd. I mean, it's totally useless if there is not a component of work in it. So we need to focus on that, and you need to fine-tune the work bit. Also because people actually have the idea that they're really working. So with that, I would also say that if you work, you should also add a little bit of payment in it, because if you don't do that, then it's still, I mean, people have to feel it's work. The second component would be that there should be a good functioning network in the employability project. And that is around the stakeholders. And this is again an open door. But you see a lot of projects where they are not communicating well, or things are just going to a one-size-fits-all route, and people are just dropping off along the way. And I think we should be putting a lot of effort in it to make sure that the network is functioning and the stakeholders are having good quality. And also we need to think about the network of the individual. They had a network and probably they used it in a bad manner to get to the drugs or the alcohol, and now they have to rebuild a new network. And I think that you say loan a network from the organizations, or from borrow. That is the way to start off with getting this new network going and building a new network. The third component would be that we should insert some quality coaching. This is again something like that is clear, but it also starts with acknowledging that if you're, let's say, somebody, if you're a case manager, getting people into recovery, that you acknowledge the fact that you are an expert on getting people off addiction into recovery, but you're not an expert on getting people into employment. I mean, it's a whole different game. And so it starts with that. And it starts with getting the right framework and the right instruments, the right. In every region you have a different local labor market, so your project should also be a little bit different, because you cannot, I mean, here we have like powerhouses as SSE and green jobs, and so that would be a business where you can get into, but if you would do it somewhere else, I mean, why would you train people to get into green jobs if there are no green jobs? Yeah. So, and this is very practical, but if you look at some programs, you think, okay, why are we doing this here? And it's because it's a one-size-fits-all program which has been rolled over the whole country, and it only works in some areas and some regions. And we just need to think about that. Yeah.
Okay. So it's very much tied with the local labour market and demand. So in terms of, I think one of the things that happens is we ask people what they would like to do, almost in a kind of a childish kind of way. Yep. What would you want to do when you grow up? But actually, people's understanding of labour markets and what's available and what opportunities there are, can be really narrow, just because it's based on their own personal experience, that of their friends, or their family, or people that live locally or whatever. So how do you open up people's imagination to what they'd be capable of personally, and what would be available to them?
I always start with this question. So what do you want to do as regards to a job? And I'll let them go to the left side if they don't know what kind of job they want to do and go to the right side if they do. And then you already see that a lot of people don't know what to do. So this is also good because a lot of people don't know that other people don't know. So, and then the third question I usually ask is like, so you want to be happy? And then you see that everybody goes to the side that they want to be happy. So I think that a job is a means to an end. So if you get a job, and maybe it's not the dream job you want to have, but nobody starts with a dream job, but you can provide for your family, or you can provide for your son or your daughter, or you know, just buy stuff and have a home. That is the start of being happy. That is the start of being an integral part of society. And from there you go to another job, to a better job. And I think that maybe because they have been out of society for so long, it's also really hard to know what they actually want to, they wanted to become clean in recovery. But now they have a new goal, a new objective, and that is getting a job they love. But getting the job you love is not always getting it straight away. I mean, everybody has to work for it. So I always say that just getting active, just getting in the rhythm of working and doing stuff, that will help a lot in the beginning. And from there, we'll just see where we end up.
And personally, what people are doing there is they're thinking of themselves as being on a road to recovery, say, or as a person in recovery. But what you're saying is that their identity then becomes something else. You know, so it's not just a road to recovery and then you're there, but there's a road to recovery, then there's a road to employment, and then there's maybe a road to happiness.
And if possible, everything at the same time.
Okay. As people move through their recovery, you know, they may be on a road to recovery, if that's the way they think of it, and then they achieve that state. In terms of their identity or their sense of themselves, or the way other people think about them, previously people have, you know, had quite a narrow view that they are a drug user or have been named a drug user, and that's how they're perceived, or as a person in treatment or whatever. But of course, people, all of us have a multifaceted identity, you know, including our perception of ourselves and other people's perceptions of ourselves. So, in the beginning of exploring that, what's the route in terms of work? What's your route in?
Well, I'm just giving you a few workshops about the brand I. I mean, you are a unique person. I am a unique person, and everybody is unique. So the only problem is that they have a past of drugs abuse, and you need to reshape, rebuild your image. And that is hard. I mean, sometimes maybe some of this is on the internet, so you have to wash that away, but not by lying, but just rebuilding, and maybe sometimes using your old brand and reshaping it in a new brand. And I think that is very well doable by starting in your community, showing that you are different, doing something good, voluntary work. I mean, in Holland, we have a new law, it's called the participation law. And actually it's like mandatory to do voluntary work, which is a bit odd, but the whole idea is that you should do something for society because of the fact you get something from society, like a benefit, or, you know. So this is also something which everybody should know, that because of the past, I mean, you have to show even more than other people that you're back. You're back in society, and you have to brand that. People have to know that you actually want to make an effort, and that is very doable. I've seen it thousands of times. I've seen people doing amazing stuff in projects and getting into the labor market and being top notch as a manager, coming from far. Yeah, I think it's very doable, and that is because we have different identities.
Yeah. And I think what people try and do, or the people who make it in terms of getting work, have managed to change what has been a series of quite negative identity, but negative experiences into an asset. And I think that's what a lot of recovery is for people, is that's when people start to feel that they're in recovery, when they can think of they can address the things that have happened in their past or they have done in their past, but be able to talk about it in a positive way, as we all have learned from things we've done that maybe we wouldn't do now. So in terms of that identity, then you're moving on as a person in employment. What are the key supports people actually need?
Oh, the key support. Well, I think that you come back to a little bit of that quality coaching. What I do see a lot in the care sector, right? I think this is that case managers sometimes take over too much. So you should make sure that the responsibility stays at the person who is aiming for employability. Because if you take over, everybody is going to look at the case manager, and if it goes wrong, they're blaming the case manager. And we have to be clear that because of the addiction and the stuff people won't go to, you know how that goes, you have a grief cycle and all that stuff. But then you have the employment cycle. I mean, it's going to be hard if you don't get, you're eager to get the job. You go for it, you do your job search, and you're wanting to enter the labor market and enter the real society, and then you don't get the job, and so you fall back, and you get a sort of job loss stage grief, which you get over, and this is where the quality coaching comes in. This is the support we should give, and we should not solve problems, but we should support in solving the problems, not solving. So this is a very fine line of what a coach, a mentor should do, and I think that if this has been done well in a right framework, let's be honest. There must be somewhere there must be a one size fits all. There are norms and values in society, so it's clear that if you don't, if you're not in that framework. I always said in Holland we had a work-first approach, like the Werkcenter model, for instance, that you actually got a job. But if they did something which was, you had to, laid off for it, we did it. Why? Because if you don't do it, it's not normal. So you have to stay focused on, even though they come from a background where you think, okay, it's great they're back, but the society just has some kind of norms and values, so you should stick to that. And if it goes out, if you go wrong, you should be, I'm not saying sanctioned, maybe it's not a good word. Let's put it this way, if you do right, you should be rewarded. And that's how it works. But you cannot be rewarded if you do just a normal thing. So and this is a fine line, which happens a lot in the sector in recovery, because people are proud they are so far, but then the new start begins. Am I making it a bit clearer?
So and so it's about making something people understanding their responsibility and having independence and being empowered to make mistakes.
Empowered.
So it's a program of empowerment. More generally, and for people to take control of their lives. Because I suppose that's what people are wanting, that's what we're calling recovery. Recovery is actually just a process in which people take control of their own lives and are empowered. And so employability is part of that, but that learning isn't just between 9 and 5 or 35 hours a week. That's life stuff.
Yeah, it is. Well, one of the programs I do with Scottish young people, but it is from 16 till 35. So, I'm not in it yet anymore, but but it's a very intensive program. You go for 6 weeks work in Holland, and the work placement bit. It's called Journey to Work, by the way. But the work placement bit is important. But you see that the life around the job is probably even more important, because you also see how people act. Do they have a good breakfast? How are they talking with their colleagues? How are they actually socializing in normal life? Are they capable of getting on the bus or talking and do shopping? This kind of stuff. So how can we expect that somebody will do a good job if they cannot even functioning well in society. So it's not like, I think you can only get people into job if they are actually job ready. And how do we assess that? We assess that by just looking at them and see if they actually can do it. And you see also if they do it, they accelerate in development. So these kind of programs, and nowadays, I mean, we are complaining a lot about Job Center Plus, maybe, you know, but they're having one thing, and they do not have the time to talk with you every week for an hour or so. But I would even say that 1 hour a week is not good enough, because I mean, in this hour, everybody knows you can, you know, present yourself in a good manner. It's about what you do outside that hour into getting into the job, or how you act as a person. And that is what is very important.
Just intensity of that support. And it's similar to treatment.
Yeah.
It's the more contact you can have with your treatment provider and a therapeutic relationship, and the quality of that relationship, and the fact that that relationship looks at the whole of you, not just about your substance use. It's exactly the same stuff around employability. Good practice is about an intense support. And an understanding of what's going on in somebody's life.
Yeah, because, you know, this is where the trust part, the confidence part comes in. I mean, as a coach, if you want to relate to people, it's not like that you have to say every time what they have to do, but you have to say something, and then I can coach or I cannot coach, because you just have to fail yourself, and then I can say something. Because this is how it works. And I also think that I had a project with a homeless person who was addicted, and he wanted to recovery, but he was a bit wandering around, and he was saying, yeah, but I'm a free man, you know, I do whatever I want, I like it. And I gave him this program, like, it was a Dutchman, went to Scotland for 6 months, and because of that program, and he was ready to do something, but he was not ready to say to me that although he was free, he was unhappy. Yeah. And he saw that the rhythm of life, you know, making your breakfast, going to your work, getting out of work, having dinner, go to the movies, being tired, you know, it's also the social life. That gave him, and he said it to me, and we call him Stanley. It's not his real name because I didn't ask him, but he said to me, Stanley, that it showed me that I actually wasn't free. I just told myself I was free because I didn't want to acknowledge the fact that I needed to accelerate, I needed to develop. And now this guy, he has a job in London, and he works, and he sometimes calls me and says, hey, do we have some young people who come through the program? I can offer them a job. So this is what you want, that you show what can happen if you go into the route of employment, and they experience it, and that's why they develop. Not because of the coaching, but because you can show them and they can experience it themselves. And this is the strong stuff. This is the fine-tuning. This is the quality coaching, what I'm talking about.
Pieter, thank you very much.
You're welcome.